Hi, this is Aoife Dean, and this is the Happy Weight podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. This episode today, I'm talking about relapse and recovery because it's just par for course. If we're coming out of like maybe a history or whole lives of dodgy eating, overeating, having issues with our food and body, it's going to be a journey. Like it is for everyone. There's no avoiding that. No one has smooth sailing from A to Z in one go. I saw a lovely thing on Instagram yesterday, actually, by Dr. Tara Stewart. And, you know, she was kind of saying the steps of behavioral change are that you really desire something. And so with our eating and weight, it's really important, I think, that why we have this desire to change is way more about the itsy bitsy parts of our week, basically, that it's not like, oh my God, so I can be size 8 or something. You know, you think those goals are motivating. They're actually not. That's not big enough of a why at all. Being like, oh, I want to be 70 kilos on the scales. That is not an inspiring goal because it doesn't really give you enough clarity on the why and the feeling that you'll have. So I think it's more about how you want to feel in restaurants, how you want to feel on Christmas Day, how you want to feel in photos, how you want to feel on a Saturday morning, how you want to feel on Monday mornings in work. Like all these parts of our week that previously would have been tarnished by guilt or being overfed or overfull or uncomfortable, now being in a new way of comfort, physical and mental. So the first one's desire. The second one is small incremental steps. And unfortunately, we can't avoid that one either. You know, I suppose people's addiction to rapid weight loss is kind of an idea that, oh, maybe I could skip a load of steps. Maybe I could go from being in an absolutely terrible place with my food and my body all my life to, you know, brilliant and skinny straight away. And, you know, that I think that's why the rapid weight loss industry does so well, because, that's a lovely idea, isn't it? That like, you know, you could just go from baby infants to a doctorate. You don't need to do any of the steps in between. But unfortunately, small incremental steps is all we have. And when I'm working with clients, I'm a bit obsessed with how do you want to feel in 20 minutes time? I honestly think that's everything. Because the only thing that ever messes you up with your eating is that, say, now you want a slice of toast or two, right? And in 20 minutes time, you'd feel perfect. That'd be sitting really nicely in your belly. It wouldn't be overeating. It wouldn't be undereating. It would just be happily fueling your body. But you might be in a state of fear where you're like, no bread for me today. I had way too much bread now the last 7 days. No bread for me. So you restrict that slice or two of toast. And then later on that night, you're having 5 times the calories of 2 slices of toast. So that's an example of not being honest about how you truly like to feel in 20 minutes time. And the opposite is true as well. You know, we might get back into the usual story of, oh my God, now tomorrow I'm going to be so good. Like, I'm going to really pull up my socks. What I'm doing isn't enough. I'm going to have to speed things up. I'm going to have to cut out more foods. And, whenever we start that storyline, well, then it's just permission to overeat now. So yet again, you've lost sight of how will I feel in 20 minutes time. So if how you will feel in 20 minutes time is uncomfortable with whatever choice you're thinking of making, it's not the right choice. That's it. So if it's like, don't have a cream egg, you know, you shouldn't have that cream egg or something. But in 20 minutes time, having the cream egg would make you physically comfortable. As illogical as it sounds, you restricting that cream egg is not the right answer, because in 20 minutes time, you'll feel lacking. You'll feel hard done by. You'll no doubt have eaten the equivalent in almonds or diet yogurts or something. Anyways, you won't even have saved calories. So that small incremental step is so important, which leads on to the next one, which is just repetition of the small incremental step. So that's the whole thing. We actually never need yesterday. We never need tomorrow. We never need to see where am I along my journey to losing weight. All we have is the next 20 minutes. That's our point of power, as Eckhart Tolle says. You know, that's the only thing we can have an effect on. We can have an effect on the next 20 minutes. So repeating that over and over again. If it's midday now, just need to see how you're feeling by 12:20 and etc. Then consistency with that. And then the next one she mentions, understanding your triggers, which is, I suppose, as well as kind of guiding clients on the right path, like I suppose working with them on their triggers is a big one. And like I've mentioned in other episodes, it's always the same ones. It's a photo, it's a pair of jeans, it's a comment from someone. And we have to really almost see them as the origin of our problem now. Our reaction to those little things is why we have a weight problem. Because we don't actually need to react like that. Like there are people who are bigger than us, smaller than us or whatever, could go into a shop and the clothes look crap on them and they wouldn't blame themselves and they wouldn't shame their body. And equally, if someone made a passing comment, we have the ability to say, well, that says more about them than it says about me. So, we have the power to change our reaction to all our triggers. But if we keep all the triggers triggering, we won't probably change. And then last but not least, that Dr. Stewart one said, patience. And I kind of think that what leads me on to today's episode, because relapse and recovery, I think a lot of the times we relapse into old eating is because we've got impatient. Like we could be ticking along grand, keeping the show on the road, a reduction in binging, more nights where we're going to bed feeling comfortable, more times where we're feeling positive, eating pizza or Chinese or whatever it is, like having a lovely time with whoever we're eating it with and having an amount that feels lovely in our stomach, and then moving on with our night or moving on with our day. So we might be building all those things, which inevitably mean we're going to be a lighter weight in the near future than we were when we couldn't do those things. But at some point we might get overconfident, and we might be like, hey, I wonder, could I speed this up? I wonder, could I could I speed it up? Could I tighten things up diet wise a little bit? I was talking to a client the other day, which kind of inspired this podcast, and she's doing amazing. Like she's still doing amazing. This is all par for course, having a little relapse. There's no issue there. But she was going on holidays soon. And like actually we had probably 2 calls before that holiday where there was barely anything to talk about. Like things were grand, like such like a different state from our first few calls. We pretty much need an hour twice a week, like really working through stuff. And then, these calls was like, wow, there's like, feels like we've covered all bases. There's not much to talk about. But anyways, then kind of before the holiday, old habits die hard. And she was probably thinking, as well as I'm doing, maybe I could tighten up a little bit more with the eating so that I could be like slimmer faster by holidays or whatever. And the holiday went okay-ish, but then when she got back, she's been binging since. And she's found it really hard to get back, to treating herself right and all the rest of it. And so there's a few things that we fall into. And so the first one, like I've mentioned already, is if the answer is you won't be comfortable in 20 minutes, it's not the right answer. It doesn't matter what it is. So it's like if you've just had a main meal and like you really know and believe that you want this dessert and it would fit in perfectly and you'd be comfortable after it, well then it would be very trusting of yourself and your body to listen to that. The opposite of trust is fear and control and restriction. That would be not letting yourself have the dessert. Like I say, probably eating double or triple the calories of that dessert then in the next 24, 48 hours. Or a feeling of hard done by, poor me. I'm making all these efforts to cut things out and here I am still overweight. It really can send us down the wrong road. So sticking to that 20 minutes time rule is so, so vital. The next thing is which kind of comes into this, like when things start going off track. So say for my client there, no doubt, and for me and everyone else who's in a relapse on and off, it will be kind of the case that, okay, I've definitely messed it up now. I'm definitely in a bad place. Like I've officially eaten way too much today now. I've officially eaten way too much this week. I'm officially in a bad phase. Like there's no rectifying this. Like it's all bad. And then we'll say, so now I really have to tighten up tomorrow. Tomorrow I have to be good. And like, there's this thing that happens, right? That the more we call today bad, or the more we call this week bad, well, then the natural instinct is that tomorrow and next week will have to be really good. And then what you're actually saying there is food scarcity. You are telling your brain that the last week there's been tons of food, and any second now there'll be no food. Any second now there'll be very, very little food. There'll be far less food. And the thing is, this is not personal to you. Like your reaction to there being less food next week, you don't have control over that. That is from a very, very deep, evolutionary part of your brain that knows you would be dead long ago if you didn't eat more the day before food goes away. So for every day you say, well, okay, I'll just have this last chocolate and then I'm going to start being good. Or I'm just going to have this last biscuit and then I'm going to start listening to my belly again. Like, stop insinuating food is going away. And actually, I would say a way around that is really call your bluff. Be like I used to do this actually. Like, so if my brain fooled me by saying, Aoife, eat all the Galaxy Minstrels now tonight. Eat them all now, because then, it'll be so cool tomorrow. You'll have a clear run of the day. You can just happily be off chocolate because you'll be sick of it. You'll have really had your fill of it. So eat loads now tonight. And I used to actually do this thing that I used to like punish myself then the next morning by making myself eat chocolate, because it is like cop yourself on. Stop saying chocolate is not going to be there tomorrow. Stop saying that there ever will be less food. Like, cheap shit food anyway is only getting cheaper. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, go into Deals or a place like that, you could probably get a share bar 2 for €2 or something bananas. So like, as in, there is no scarcity of food. So we have to notice all the different ways we're saying the same thing in our head, because saying this is a bad phase, soon I'll have a good phase. Translation, food scarcity. So it will never, ever work. So, yet again, call your own bluff on that. If you're about to say like, oh, I'll have these few biscuits and then after that I'll be good. It'll be like, nope. Your punishment for saying something like that is you need to go into the kitchen, get a dinner plate, put the entire packet of biscuits out in it, and knock yourself out. Like, if you want to have a nice time with biscuits, cool. I presume that doesn't mean you want to be uncomfortable. I presume that doesn't mean you want to like waste them and eat them and not tasting them or anything. Like, if you want to have a nice time with them, yeah, cool. Let's have a nice time. Let's see how many biscuits it takes before the taste wears off and the moment is over. Let's see how many biscuits before your belly changes its feeling. Before your belly goes from feeling nice to being like, okay, you can stop. Let's dive right in. Let's see what happens. So literally anything is better than restriction. The next one is, right, fat as a feeling, not a size. So usually part B, well, maybe it's part C then. Okay, so step 1 is we judge the day, we judge the week. The day wasn't enough, my week wasn't enough, which, like I said, causes us to be like, tomorrow or in the future, I'll be good, which is food scarcity. The other part with that is because today was bad, because the week was bad, I'm fat, I'm a failure. Because fat is a feeling, not a size, and it's a feeling of unworthiness. So you saying that today wasn't good enough, that this week wasn't good enough, that's not based on fact. Like, you're not good at measuring those things. If you've had eating and weight problems, your view of food can sway to the negative. So it's not a very, It's not a very trustworthy account, you saying that yesterday was bad or this week was bad. But you doing that makes you feel like a failure. And there's a really fine line between feeling like a failure, feeling unworthy, and feeling fat. Like, for me, I think it's all the same feeling, basically. And so we have to snap right out of that. We have to be like, you are not a failure and you are entitled to feel better. And if your belly is sore, if your belly is over full, you are entitled to let that feeling of fullness wear off now. If you're sick of sugar, you are entitled to have fresh nutrients and fruit and veg later. And don't let your mind or anything or anyone else tell you otherwise. And you have nothing to be ashamed of. And you are not the first or the last person to overeat. And whatever you think that you overate was too much, in another way, get over yourself. It's not as if no one else in the country has eaten that amount today already. And it's not as if anyone who's ever eaten whatever you ate there is overweight. So like, you know, we don't need to make it so extreme or catastrophize it so much. And you also have to keep remembering there are people strutting around the place delighted because they just found out that they've lost enough weight to be your weight today. And they are happy and they are living life and they are moving forward and they are feeling slim, which is going to allow them to feel even slimmer soon. It's going to change their habits and behavior so they make even more slimming choices. And so you have to catch yourself, and you aren't behind. You haven't done anything wrong. And you have every right to feel confident, sexy, attractive, whatever it is you want to feel today. You've every right to feel strong or fit in the gym if you like those feelings. If you'd like to do a few ab crunches or something and wake up those muscles in your belly, you get to do that. If you want to do a few squats and feel your arse muscles and notice how strong you are there, cool, do that. If you want to go for a walk, get fresh air. Like, because reality is so different from the poison that goes on in our head. And I remember this, like the poison that used to go on in my head so much. So that sometimes I'd look in the mirror and I'd literally be expecting to see someone morbidly obese, like almost the difference between me yesterday and today, that I've suddenly got morbidly obese. And then I'd be shocked that I look more or less the same as yesterday, because my toxic thinking would have been so bad over the last 24 hours. It made me believe that things had changed significantly when they hadn't. Like, nothing in your body changes significantly quickly at all. That's an absolute myth, you know. Even rapid weight loss is generally water and glycogen and stuff like that. That's real manipulation of the body, but it's not generally body size. So just catching yourself with that one, because that will be every tool, every trigger you learn, letting go of a weight problem, you will need 9 billion times keeping off the weight as well. And we will need to get better and better at clicking our fingers and just instantly snapping out of that fat feeling. Because that fat feeling ultimately is a choice of how we talk to ourselves and how we treat ourselves. And now it has to be not good enough, because we can't have both, as I'm always saying on this podcast. Like, we can't think and treat ourselves like we're this fat failure and then expect ourselves to be getting healthier and fitter and lighter and having this positive relationship with nutritious food. It's like they're going in opposite directions, those two. So do whatever you need to do clothes-wise. There definitely would have been days where I would have changed my clothes 4 times a day. And I'm sure a psychologist would have something to say about that. But you just do what you have to do when you're in that fat state and you're trying to get out of it. And yeah, wrap yourself in cotton wool, but don't put up with it. Like, you haven't done anything wrong. You're not behind. You have a right to move forward. The next one is, and to be fair, you could be called worse things than a perfectionist. But a lot of this comes down to you have a perfectionist mentality. So you think behavioral change should be linear, you know, that it should be just a straight graph up of progress. And I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but it isn't like that for anyone. Like, maybe smoking and stuff, people smoke and then they quit one day and then they're grand. But like, you can't really do that with thoughts. Like, you can't really have issues with food and weight and be thinking along the same lines as someone with a weight problem, and then overnight think like a slim person. That's not going to happen. And, you know, our automatic reactions and responses and, like I said, emotional triggers, all of this is going to take time to iron out. And our perfectionist mentality will be kind of like, well, I learned this stuff and I mastered it before. So why the hell am I back here? Why the hell am I back here to square one? And, you know, with every junction of changing, compassion is nearly always the right answer because, you know, yet again, if it was your best friend and if she'd made all these cool, happy moves forward and she'd created all these beautiful moments with food that she'd never experienced before, like I said, going to bed feeling nice after pizza, or, you know, sharing a cake with a friend and not feeling guilty, or, you know, just really starting to see the light, basically, seeing how life could be happy ever after when you're not dieting and you're not giving out to yourself and you're not overeating. So it's like, what I always think and what I used to say to my bully is like, those events have actually happened. Like, they literally happened. So there's nothing that could ever bring me back to square one, because ultimately change is bringing up our average. Like, I don't think you don't try and become a slim person. There's just moments where we're the old us in a weight problem mindset, and there's the new us when we're acting like our slim best friend. And we're either in one or the other mode. Like, so there is no trying, there is no in between. And we're trying to bring up on average how much we're in that mode of being like our slim BFF. And so like I said, no one can take those moments off of you. You've already increased the average of the last month or week or year if those positive moments happened. So we get to build on them. And like I said, what would you say to a best friend if she had made all those moves forward? Would you be like, by the way, give up? You know, and especially if you knew it was important to her, like, as in, you've a right to go for your dreams and you've a right to be lighter and healthier. You've a right to have a better relationship with food and live longer. Like, come on, you know? So can you imagine if they were your friends' goals? Can you imagine being like, by the way, you know, because you overate there last week, I'd say give up on that lifetime goal. You know, it's like, that's harsh, unhelpful, a bit silly, really. Like, why would a bump in the road be enough of a reason to give up? And then it's kind of like, if it is, maybe you don't actually want it, or maybe you're wise as why you do want to have a cool relationship with food, or be happier, be more positive in yourself, or whatever. Maybe your whys aren't big enough, because if you can throw it all away so easily, and sometimes, of course, we can throw things all away so easily, also because of low self-confidence, that we keep telling ourselves we can't progress. And you have to be cognizant of that as well. Because if for all the moments we said we can't progress, if they had actually been moments where we said you can progress, things would be looking very, very different now. And we can jump on that bandwagon whenever we want. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking. You don't have to believe any of your beliefs. And when you actually pick them out and write them down or look at them from every angle, some of them are a bit silly. Like, even the one like, you'll never lose weight. It's like, what? I'll never be a pound lighter than I am today. Because that's losing weight, by the way. That's the only way to lose weight. You can only lose weight by being a pound lighter, then another pound lighter, then another pound lighter. Like, that's how it goes for everyone. So if you know it's possible to lose a pound, you know, you can imagine a world where you are a pound lighter. Well, then there's a world where you can be all the way at your ideal weight. And yet again, I don't recommend using the scales, but it's just, you know, the theory of what a pound lighter or 2 pounds lighter would feel like. And then what have I written here? Giving out to yourself is a prescription for increased calories. So especially when we're coming out of the blip, we can look back at however long a time it was, and we can compare it to maybe your good times with eating and weight. And you'll notice that the difference is you did loads of giving out to yourself. And I think we can just be matter of fact about that like, you know, we can't expect to, okay, this is a bit of a stupid analogy, but we can't expect to, like, say, put our hand in the fire and burn her hand and not need a plaster afterwards. Like, you're going to need a plaster afterwards. So us giving out to ourselves is us putting our hand in the fire. And the overeating afterwards is that having to put a Band-Aid on it. Like, you're always going to need to put a Band-Aid on after giving out to yourself. And so there's a little bit of that. So sometimes our overeating is a 50-50 mix of the self-hypnosis of you're fat anyway, so you might as well eat. We might be eating coming from that place, or we might be eating to self-soothe. And it's usually a bit of a mix of both. So we've really hurt our own feelings. We've said very nasty things to ourselves. And now we just want to feel better. And serotonin or dopamine or anything that could come from chocolate or high fat or high sugar or high salt, clicking the bliss point in our brain, all of that seems like a pretty decent option if we're low enough. So the origin ultimately of the weight problem, 9 times out of 10, is that initial giving out to yourself. Anyways, so this is why another thing that, we will need to lose the weight, but we will need to 9 million times to keep off the weight, is you're not waiting for something to change so you can change your mindset. You can notice something and change instantly. You can notice, oh, wow, hey, I've been super critical on myself. I've been very negative about food, very negative about my eating. I've actually put myself in a very bad place with the whole thing the last few days. And it doesn't help. It doesn't work. And I get to click my fingers now and be a different person. I get to click my fingers and be someone with high self-worth, high self-esteem, someone who wants the best for themselves, who allows themselves to go for their dreams and allows themselves to progress towards them. So I get to talk to myself completely different. Now that I've noticed it, I can change it. I don't need to wait for anything else to change it. Because I suppose the mistake there sometimes is people are like, well, I need one good day of eating behind me now before I can be proud of myself. And it's like, oh, well, that's never going to work. It's because when we feel fat, we act fat. So feeling fat and then trying to eat in the old way, the old good way, I mean, like feeling fat and basically trying to eat like a person in a good mentality is going to be like trying to push a boulder up a hill. It's way, way easier to snap out of that fat mentality, become slim again in your head, walk tall, shoulders back, chin up, embody your slim best friend or any mega mix of people that you think have a cool relationship with food, and go from there, because everything's so much clearer when we're thinking from that level. And as Einstein says, you can't fix a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. So us being in that fat feeling and us being like, come on, just have one good day so you can start feeling better. It's kind of like, nah, you're still feeling fat. You're still giving out to yourself. You're still waiting. You're still criticizing. So, to get out of that zone, it has to be a mental, immediate choice to embody someone new. Embody the person who has just lost 3 stone to get to the weight that you are today. And I could go on with that one, but you know what? We've covered a lot of ground there. I hope this helps. And I hope this helps time and time again. I hope this is one of those episodes that every time you do relapse, that you can listen back to it and know that it's no big deal. You haven't done anything wrong. It's par for course. You've a right to move on. And the best sailors learn on the roughest seas. Like I said to my client there the other day, who spawned this episode, I was like, sometimes we have to be frickin' slapped across the face with a lesson. And she tiptoed back to calorie restriction and she got slapped across the face with 3 weeks of binging. So she will never, ever do that again in her life. And sometimes we have to learn lessons the hard way. So when you start seeing things differently, you become very grateful for the hard lessons that do send us back to square one, because they remind us, okay, I can't do that again because it risks me going back to square one. And 2, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't suit me. And I'll never, ever do it again, because I think another important part of wanting to let go of a weight problem is being adamant. You are not going to do anything that could potentially cause you to overeat, So that means if calorie restriction could potentially mean you're on a couch this week, overeating, it's not an option for weight loss. So I'm wishing you the best. I believe in you. And I hope everything goes well. I hope this episode really helps you. Okay, take care and talk to you next time.